Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. New Gallup poll out. Good news for working people. New Gallup poll says 71% of Americans approve of labor unions. That is the highest approval rating since 1965. Back when 1965, I seem to remember unionization in this country was 35% of the private sector workforce was in a union at that point. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if 35% of the workforce today in the private sector were members of labor unions, enjoying better wages, hours, working conditions, health care, retirement security? Wow, wouldn't that be a way to move the country in a better direction? Yeah, it would. Now, like I said, highest since 1965. Up again, 71% up from before the pandemic, which was 64%. Pretty sizable jump. And again, coming out of the pandemic, back when we were told frontline heroes, essential, and then only to get relegated to the back of the bus. I think people are tired of it, and I think people are going, hey, how do we change the world? And today we're going to talk a little bit about how do you begin to do that? Smart policy being part of it. Also today, lots of focus on the new economy, moving the country forward, the clean, green energy sector, lots of manufacturing jobs being announced, and the announcements coming fast and furious. The Wall Street Journal is saying that what we're seeing is globalization in reverse. Yep. They said, look, after the COVID-19 pandemic, basically upended our entire supply chain, which, predictable things that I had been talking about for years. They say that U.S. companies are bringing jobs back to the U.S. and beginning to process closer to home. And you go, yeah, you should have saw that. This is why you pay the smart people the big money to know this stuff. Although the greed got to them, man. That next quarter, the bigger checks, and then the pandemic hit, and the reality that it's not all fun and games. Now, again, we're going to see lots of investment moving forward. I saw First Solar. They're going to be investing $1.2 billion in U.S. plants because, hey, solar power, yeah, duh. But we've also got a policy in place that's going to move us in that direction. Corporate America, capitalism, going to feed that demand. Smart. It's been my view that had we done this back in the, 80s, when the guy who destroyed the country and moved us in all the wrong directions, Ronald Reagan, ripped the solar panels off the White House. Had we continued down the path that Carter put us on, we'd be so much better off. The globe would be so much better off. I think of the wars. Never mind. That's an exercise in futility, and it's one of those things that I don't even really want to get into. Also, the idea that we're going to start building cars in the U.S. again. And lots of them, the electric kind and the batteries. And this is one of those things where you go, because there have been tons of announcements. GM, Hyundai, Tesla's talking about building a couple of battery plants. There's a bunch of this really good news out there. Honda just announced a partnership with LG where they're considering how they build a 40 gigawatt hours of battery a year, which would, I guess, fuel something like 700,000 vehicles. That'd be good, I think, right? And you go, well, how'd that happen? Well, in order to get the tax breaks that are in the Biden legislation, in order to get the tax breaks that Democrats have pushed through, no thank you, Republicans, because you didn't come along. You got to build stuff here. Yeah, smart policy. And this is where I keep coming to this moment where you have smart policy. In fact, coming very soon, they're going to be opening the Intel. They're going to be breaking ground on the Intel plant in Ohio. In fact, Corning just announced that they're going to be spending a boatload of money in Phoenix to ramp up production of fiber optic cable. Massive internet program. This is where you go, who's responsible? Maybe, hold on. Maybe we could come up with a stupid sticker. Maybe we could repurpose those idiotic stickers that morons aren't putting on gas pumps anymore. You know, the ones that Joe Biden did this. Maybe we could grab those stickers and put them in places that matter. Because all of this stuff that's happening is because of smart policy. Policy put forth by the Biden administration and Democrats with no help really from Republicans have put into law. And again, why is this happening? Why are these jobs coming back? Why the Buy American provision? Something that I've been talking about, well, all 17 years I've been doing this show. Things need to be made here. In fact, in the article written by the good folks there at the Axios, thanks to the infrastructure funding, the law's Buy American provisions, it will need to be made largely in the U.S. They're reporting right there. In order to get the tax credits, in order to get the incentive, in order to get the carrot, you got to do something for it. And what is that? Oh yeah, you got to make it in the U.S. and you got to have U.S. jobs. And I love the fact that they want those to be union jobs. You know, since unions are very popular right now, seems like a great idea. And again, it comes back down to this idea, it's the policy, stupid. It really is. It's the policy. And I'm curious your thoughts, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. In this moment, as we're seeing all of this energy, all of this excitement, all of this move towards reshoring manufacturing, moving in a direction to make this country a producer again. Because remember, for 100 years, this was the global producer. We're where things were made. I always point to that bridge in Trenton, New Jersey, that says Trenton makes, the world takes. That was true for 100 years. We have given that away, and it's, look, I don't mind fighting and losing. I've been in a lot of fights that I've lost. I mind losing and not putting up, and this is what's happened to us. We've given away our manufacturing base because corporate America goes, hey, we can make more profit for us. Screw those workers. Let them go get other jobs. We can make higher profits by exploiting workers in other countries, exploiting lax labor laws and non-existent environmental laws, and we can do all this stuff and pocket the difference without thinking that there are other problems. And we had legislators, we had rule makers, we had lawmakers who, oh yeah, make a campaign contribution, buy our democracy, that allowed it to happen. And am I not surprised that there are angry people in this country? No, I'm not surprised. I'm angry at what's happened. Am I surprised that it's angry old white guys who are sharing Q nonsense and talking about joining the militia? No. They got screwed. They thought they had the world by the short hairs, and corporate America screwed them. Now, what corporate America smartly did, and in their defense, they're smart. They created a media network to go, no, it wasn't us. No, we would never do that. We love you. It was those people. They're the people who destroyed your country. Go get them. It was Democrats, it was immigrants, it was others, and they fed them the red meat daily on a constant basis. Constant outrage candy. While continuing to push policy that made their lives worse. And yet the amazing part of it is, and I go back to the Tea Party movement, and I remember arguing with Tea Party people back then, we're taxed enough already. And I remember going, yeah, working people are. But let's talk about apples and apples and oranges and not get into this hyperbolic nonsense. Who are we talking about taxing? Reagan takes office, top marginal tax rate 70%. He leaves office, it's 28%. Who picked up the difference? You did, dummy. By, either paying higher taxes or getting less. and taking on more debt. And where are we now? We're, what, $30 trillion in debt? We're getting less services, we're getting less opportunities, and oh, by the way, we've got the best democracy corporate America can buy. And now we've got a president. Now we've got an administration that's going, you know what, we need to change this. We need smarter policy that's going to help the little guy. We need smarter policy that's going to help the working class. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing through the infrastructure bill. That's what we're seeing in moving us towards reinvesting through a Buy American provision in all of this stuff. Ensuring that what we, through our government procurement, our tax dollar spends, has a reverberation effect us. This every working person should be thrilled with. But what are we hearing from our Republican friends? Obstruction. You know, heck, they're already planning to impeach him. They aren't even in power yet. They're already planning an impeachment. And understand, his approval ratings are going up because why? Life's getting better. You know, when that moron McCarthy said, well, is your life better, 2 years ago? And people are starting to go, yeah, my life's better, much better now than it was 2 years ago. Remember, we were locked down. Gas prices are coming down. Inflation's coming down a little bit. Jobs are plentiful. The economy seems to be moving in the right direction. And oh, by the way, we're beginning to talk about how we move this country's economy in a different place. And this is what I've been saying for the longest time. It's about the policy. It's the policy, stupid. When you allow corporate America to write the policies through their American Legislative Exchange Councils that secretively hand off, here's what we want, and they get lobbyists in there to spend, millions of dollars, whining and dining our legislators. It's not amazing. It's not surprising they get what they want, and we don't. And now we've got an administration that, just a little bit, is helping working people. And the right and the Wall Street folks and the elite and the well-connected, they don't happy. Not happy at all. Which is why you're seeing the spasms, which is why you're seeing all of the divisive stuff coming out of the think tanks so that the dim can share it without even thought. It's amazing to me. I'm going to take a quick break here. When we come back, a couple of emails that grabbed my attention. I got a bunch of them yesterday. I'm not going to get to all of them, but just some that just grabbed my attention. Want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. Fan of the show, you've heard our Labor History in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Again, like I said, I got a couple of emails from folks who not thrilled with my position on Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan. In fact, Dennis says, I simply don't understand how you can support Biden's handouts while working people are left holding the bag. Workers paying for their boss's education is a bad thing. I would have had expected better from you. Marianne writes, more handouts for the wealthy while working poor struggle. I thought you knew better. And that was kind of the gist of some with much more colorful language, which I didn't want to highlight. Here's the reality. No policy is ever perfect. This is a win for working people because understand the people who are going to get their loans basically forgiven are truck drivers and tradesmen and people who went to VOTEC programs and license programs, people who cut hair and all of those things. They're going to get their stuff forgiven. Their life is going to change. Those are working people. Those are the folks who I firmly believe those programs should have been paid for from the beginning. And we should, because in the past, what used to happen is, and this is what happened with me. I worked for a company that said, we'll train you. You want to drive a truck? We'll train you. You didn't have to go to a school and pay thousands of dollars. You worked for a company, they trained you. That's almost over these days. There are a couple of places that still do it, but you've got these truck driving schools all over that, you pay thousands of dollars and you can take out a loan and pay it back slowly. This is going to give people an opportunity to get out from under that. You want to go, learn how to do hair or nails or whatever needs a license at this moment. For working people, you want to be a carpenter, you want to be an electrician, all that stuff. While I'm a huge believer in union apprenticeship programs, not everybody gets into them. They're not in every place. These are going to help working people. So for me, the first part of it is that. It's that part of it. We're gonna help forgive those people who said, you know what, I want to make my life. I'm gonna make my life better. We're gonna get skills, things that I believe should have been covered all along. And then the college students, when you look at the obscene amount of tuition inflation that's gone on, not because as we're sold, they're irresponsible, it's those teachers' salaries, which is nonsense. It's because states walked away from education. Here in Pennsylvania, where I'm at, and this plays out across the country, back in the 80s, the Commonwealth picked up about 2/3 of the cost of an education. The students picked up about 1/3. Today, it's completely on its head. It's the student picks up 3/4 of the cost. The state picks up about 1/4. So to me, this is about a little tiny bit of justice, a tiny bit of fairness. Now, do we need to do more? Yeah, we need to fix the system. And we do that through policy. We do it through tax policy. And again, as I said in the last segment, it's about the policy. It's about getting us to a place where we're changing how things are done and returning to a time when working people had power across the economy, when working people were the focus of the economy. When my grandparents' generation decided that, hey, we're going to invest in healthcare, we're going to invest in education, we're going to have community hospitals, we're going to have state-run schools and community schools, and we're going to invest in that. We're going to have public education. We're going to invest in that. We're going to invest in the commons, things that we all hold near and dear, and not privatize and profitize and hand off for special interests. No, the commons, things that we all hold together. And we need to change the way this economy is focused. For too long in my lifetime, the economy's been focused on, hey, how's Wall Street doing? Are the Wall Street traders happy? How's the stock doing? How's the boss doing? Dennis brings up, paying for the boss. We've been paying for the boss for decades now. We've been more worried about the boss than we've been worried about the workers. And now, finally, for a moment, a brief moment, we've got an administration that's going, hey, maybe the ham and eggers need a hand. Maybe those working folks, maybe they need a break too. Maybe working families need a handout. Maybe they need a bailout. Maybe Main Street needs some help. So when you look at some of the policies on manufacturing that are reshoring those jobs and bringing those jobs back with smart policy, that's a good thing. You know, for decades now, we've been told by economists, you know, we need to break down barriers, deregulate, crack down on getting rid of minimum wage and maximum hour laws and all of that stuff. Be more business friendly. Pursue the no rights at work agenda. Limit the ability to sue people when they do bad things. Limit the liability for corporations when workers get injured. Protect corporate interests. And what did Jim Justice just say not too long ago, the governor of West Virginia? Because they did that. They got rid of prevailing wage laws. They got rid of, they passed a right to work law, and Jim Justice said it didn't work. Jobs didn't come flowing in, just made conditions worse. And that was the point of it. It was to make conditions worse for working people and, well, more profitable for the folks at the top. Because it's about squeezing that quarter till the eagle screams, or that worker until they scream. But am I surprised that this issue is got people, especially working people who didn't get to go to college, upset? No, I'm not surprised at it. Because they play on that jealousy. They play on that anger. They play on ripping us apart. You know, I look at it as, look, I got screwed too. I didn't get to go to college when I wanted to. But I'm looking at it from my kids. How do we fix this system? How do we take this, build on it, and move forward? And for your kids in the future, this is repairing a system that has taken decades to break. How do we move in a direction that undoes the damage that they have caused? That quote unquote the smart people, our economists who said, "Oh no, we'll take care of the poor." But working people, no, you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We'll take care of the really poor, the deserving poor, the ones who are really, we'll help them, begrudgingly, of course. But you in the middle class, you working, you keep treading along. No help for you. But every time a bank gets in trouble, every time corporate America gets in trouble, every time a billionaire needs help, we're there with the checkbook, man. And what does that mean? It means less for your children. It means less opportunity for you, your kids, your family, for your communities. We need to be talking about how we encourage better trade policies that encourages job growth at home. We need good quality jobs. We need to be talking about job creation and what kind of jobs. Not just, hey, we created jobs. No, what kind? We need full employment that has prevailing wage laws in place that ensures that those are good wage jobs. We need strong unions and strong collective bargaining rights. Stop with this deregulation mantra and this craziness that's just been a race to the bottom and made all of us worse off while enriching a handful at the top. That's what we need to be doing. And thank goodness for Joe Biden and this administration for doing some of that. Is it enough? No, not yet. But they're trying, which is why the right's losing their mind. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1907. That was the day labor leader Luisa Moreno was born in Guatemala City. As a young woman, she fought for the admission of women into Guatemalan universities. After attending journalism school in Mexico City, Luisa moved to New York with her husband and worked as a seamstress. Outraged by low pay, racial discrimination, and poor working conditions, she led organizing efforts on the job. During the Great Depression, she worked as a full-time union organizer, first with the AFL, organizing black and Latina cigar rollers in Florida. But she also became active with the Communist Party and joined CIO efforts to organize cannery workers. Luisa led unionizing efforts of pecan shelling women workers in San Antonio, Texas, and then of cannery workers in Los Angeles. In 1938, Luisa helped organize the Spanish-speaking People's Congress. During World War II, she fought against discrimination in hiring of Mexicans in oil and war-related industries. In the 1940s, she became centrally involved in high-profile legal defense cases of Mexican-American youth prosecuted on frame-up charges. These included work around the 1942 Sleepy Lagoon case and then of victims of the Zoot Suit riots a year later. She continued union work in California, helping to organize and represent walnut pickers. By 1950, she was caught in the crosshairs of the McCarthy-era witch hunts. Louisa was targeted by Operation Wetback and offered citizenship status in return for testimony against radical labor leader Harry Bridges. When she refused, she faced deportation on the accusation that she had once been a member of the Communist Party. She returned to Guatemala and continued organizing workers throughout Central America. Luisa Moreno died in Guatemala in 1992. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Corporate acolytes and right-wing moralists constantly preach to laboring stiffs about the uplifting dignity of work. Of course, that's dignity as defined and controlled by corporate elites, not by workers, and the reward for it frequently includes on-the-job injuries and death. Not that CEOs and well-heeled investors intend to sicken, maim, and kill thousands of laborers every year, but they certainly do put them in positions that assure such unhappy results. For example, they demand that farm workers go sunrise to sunset picking crops in California's 105-degree desert heat, and that construction crews toil in the muggy dog days of Florida summers, tarring condo roofs. Low-paid, powerless workers die, but no one in the corporate hierarchy did the deed, right? Heat was the killer. But wait, not only are aloof, air-cool bosses the ones who knowingly subject subordinates to deadly heat, but they're also the ones who hire squads of lobbyists and lawyers to kill simple, inexpensive rules to stop these deaths. Such rules as requiring ample water at work sites, ensuring paid rest breaks in cool spaces, training on-site managers and employees to detect and react to signs of heat stress, and imposing serious punishments for violators. Such sensible steps have repeatedly been proposed as official workplace policy for at least the last 50 years. But intense industry lobbying has killed the adoption of all attempts to prevent what amounts to workplace murder by corporate profiteers. Instead, the U.S. government pretends to protect workers by printing posters admonishing employees to beware of heat, basically telling them goodbye and good luck. This is Jim Hightower saying, but at last a real proposal has been put on the table by more than 110 grassroots groups. See it and join it by contacting Public Citizen, citizen.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So again, a number of folks not pleased with the student loan forgiveness plan. And look, I know there's a lot of people, a lot of energy put in it. And as I've said a number of times, I wish folks would take that energy and use it on other things. Like, we've been giving the wealthy bailouts for decades. How about that? How about how badly broken our tax code is, where you got 55 corporations who paid zero taxes? How about some of the, where's the anger there? It's always amazing to me when we look at our neighbors and somehow we're going to begrudge them of a little bit of help. It's remarkable. And the other part of it is there are so many things that we should be fighting for, and one of them, something very few people even talk about, trade adjustment assistance, which evidently may be on the chopping block, and the rationale for it kind of weird. Especially the justification from our friends on the right. And here to share some thoughts on that, I've asked our good friend Scott Paul to give us some thoughts. He's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. AmericanManufacturing.org is their website. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, it is great to be with you as always.
So we spend a lot of time on the student loan thing, and I think it's a good step. I think it's a smart move. I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of working people. It's been shoveled at us as divisive, but there's a lot of things that we could be fighting for in addition to this that I think are just as important, and trade adjustment assistance being one of those things.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, the odds are, if you're listening to this, you have no idea what we're talking about, trade adjustment assistance. You only know about it if you need it. And you need it if you work in a factory or a related facility and that factory closes down or has layoffs because it's shifting the production overseas, or it's closing down because imports are coming in to the United States that are replacing the product that you once made. And it's a program that's been in the law since the early 1960s. And it provides some benefits for workers to get back up on their feet. And Rick, I'm sure you know workers who have had trade adjustment assistance benefits as well. And it's not a perfect program, but it provides some retraining funds, some other kinds of income support, even some healthcare support in some cases. But here's the rub. A lot of these Republicans who criticized the student loan relief that the president announced said they did so because it's not going to help anybody who doesn't have a four-year college degree, right? So here are these people, and most of the recipients for trade adjustment assistance do not have a four-year college degree. They're working people who went into the factories right out of high school or with a tiny little bit of training, and Republicans want to eviscerate this program. In many cases, they think the benefits are too generous, or they don't think it should be applied as broadly as it is. And they always want to hold it hostage to get something that they want, like more free trade agreements. So we've got to call their bluff on this because, unfortunately, while we are seeing a lot of new factory announcements in the U.S., we're still seeing factories shut down. I mean, John Deere announced just within the last month that it was shifting some tractor production to Mexico. So this is still happening, and workers need this assistance to get back up on their feet.
How does an American icon like John Deere leave this country? How do we not hold them just absolutely accountable? How is that not an absolute PR nightmare for them?
Yeah, well, I agree, and they're doing really well. I mean, they are enormously profitable. In fact, they sold out of tractors for the second quarter of this year. They're like oversubscribed, but it's about greed. And again, you'll have people who will give John Deere a break on this, or if you bail out the big banks, they'll give them a break. But young people and others who are struggling because of the high cost of higher education, forget about it. We don't want to help, a lot of people who could really use the help. Let's help out the financial institutions that in good times make billions and billions of dollars, and then come to the government if they hit one downturn.
Yeah.
That's not to me. There's nothing conservative about that, and there's certainly nothing compassionate about that approach as well.
Now back to this trade adjustment assistance. The argument that they make is, well, we're bringing jobs back. We don't need this. I think you absolutely do need it because, as you pointed out, there's still places that are still leaving. And what's interesting to me is in every free trade agreement we have, they include this because they know we're going to lose jobs, even though they tell us we're doing these trade agreements so that we can create more jobs and we can bring jobs to the country, and that's how they've always sold them. And yet this trade adjustment assistance, which is very meager. Look, this isn't living the life of luxury. It's nowhere near the wage and the compensation that they lost. In fact, it's small percentages of what the loss is. It's interesting to me that this doesn't get the kind of anger and outrage and attention that a meager amount of money the students would get.
Yeah, this is, you're right, Rick. This is just a safety net program. This isn't designed to be perpetual income support. This is like a bridge to get back into the job market, but to also find a way that you aren't going to have to go deep into debt to pay your bills. When you have that transition. And Republicans in particular who oppose this are just so hypocritical about it because they will say they want to, what's Washington is screwing blue collar people because none of the stuff that Washington is doing applies to them. And then they're the ones who actually want to hold back some sort of a safety net for blue collar workers who lose their jobs because in some cases of the very trade agreements that these Republicans have supported over the years. So it's the bottom line is we have between now and October 1st to reauthorize this program. in a way that it won't revert back to an even smaller set of benefits and apply to an even smaller class of working Americans. For instance, if it gets rolled back, it won't include workers who've lost their jobs to trade with China, simply because we don't have a technical free trade agreement with China, where you and I know we still face a lot of competition from China. And there's a lot of jobs that have been displaced in the United States because of that lopsided trade relationship that we have.
No, I mean, it's crazy. And what you're talking about here is a little bit of extended unemployment while people get additional training or pursue other opportunities to
Right.
get the training that they need. This isn't, as I said, even anything close to what they're losing, but it's a helping hand to move them in a direction to get, some different skills. And it's amazing to me that anyone would stand in the way of this for any reason whatsoever. But again, and you don't have to come along with this. It's just to get another one of those moments for our listeners to remember. This is why I always say Republicans hate working people. It just seems to be another thing that a glowing bulb that jumps out. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Scott Paul. Scott is the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. You can check out the work that they do there. Now, the good news. Headlines, tons of them. The clean energy manufacturing announcements coming fast and furious. Solar panels, batteries, electric vehicles, chips, fiber optic cables, all kinds of stuff being, plants being broken ground. We may start making stuff again in this country.
Well, we may. That's right. And so this is exciting, and I think it's exciting for two reasons. Number one, if you and I would have talked a year ago and I would have said, Rick, one of the biggest things that's going to happen in 2022 is that we're going to see so many announcements of new factories in the United States that are going to employ thousands of people that you won't even be able to keep track of them all. I think most people would have been like, how is that even possible? We're losing these jobs, or there's, robots or automation, and factories are a thing of the past. It's all about the digital economy now. But this is proof that both we've learned some of the lessons from the pandemic about having more production here in the United States. We haven't fully learned this lesson, but we've started to learn this lesson. And B, policy makes a difference. If you actually have public investment in our infrastructure, in clean energy, if you actually have procurement policies that say in order to get that public investment, you have to manufacture it in the United States. If you have tax incentives that encourage consumers to buy these products that are made in the United States. And finally, if you have some trade enforcement and you mix all that together in a stew, you're going to get a bunch of these factories pop up all over America. And that's exactly what we've seen. And we've seen a lot of these announcements just over the last week across a broad range of products, from broadband, fiber optic cable, to solar panels, to electric vehicle batteries, and the list goes, and semiconductors as well. And so that list keeps growing and growing.
What we need is someone with a big giant sign to go to all these places, and with the, like those idiotic stickers they were putting all over gas pumps. Joe Biden did this. We need someone with a giant sign to put those out front of all of the groundbreakings that are happening. Because look, this is because of those policies.
Yeah.
Comes back down to the policies. It's the policy, stupid. It's that simple.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we're preaching to the choir here and talking to each other because you and I have both understood for a long time that if you do have an industrial policy in the United States and you're committed to it, and you have real investment behind it, that it can be highly effective. And how do we know that? Because A, it's worked in the past in the United States, and B, every other country does this. So to a different degree. And so we have the uniquely American version of this, of course, but it's how we get that EV production in the United States, or how we get that solar panel production in the United States, when these industries are starting virtually from scratch. And I'm really, really thrilled that this administration not only understands it, but is deeply committed to it and wants to position the United States as a global leader in production as we move ahead.
Yeah,
So
no,
not only are we doing apps and social networks and stuff like that, we're actually making stuff, and I think that's great news for our security and for jobs.
no, absolutely. And but here's where my fear is, and I think we've had this conversation before. My fear is we're seeing this and we're moving in the direction, and my fear is like 1980, Republicans come into office and pull the rug out from under us, like 2000, 12 and 16, come in, pull the rug out from under us, where the investments that we're making, good investments, then get squashed because you have this kind of this corporate
Right.
money backlash. I think people want this. People want a green economy. People want to move in a new direction. Everybody I talk to is thrilled about the potential of a better future and the jobs and union jobs that come along with this. My fear is, seen this movie.
Yeah, yeah, and that is a legitimate fear, and I take time back to 2009, the Recovery Act, how it was one shot and done, right? It was a very limited duration, and then you had Republicans sniping at it the whole time. The thing that I'm hopeful sets these latest actions apart, particularly the infrastructure and the chips, is that both of those bills passed with bipartisan support. I mean, it wasn't overwhelming Republican support, that's to be sure, but there were enough Republicans that made it bipartisan. And I think much like other popular Democratic policies, like Medicare or the Affordable Care Act or what have you, they may snipe at it a little bit, but they really don't want to get rid of that stuff because they realize there are extraordinary benefits for their communities there. And then on clean energy, I think the difference now compared to like 12 or 13 years ago is a lot of these clean energy investments are going into red states or purple states, Texas or Arizona or Georgia, what have you, Tennessee, Kentucky. And so in addition to kind of like the industrial heartland, the upper industrial heartland in Ohio and what have you. And so I think that, it's going to be hard for Republicans in those states to turn their back on some of these policies when they're going to have plants that are going to be opening and that are going to depend on the continuation of these policies to stay in business. So my hope is that we've squeezed some of that out. But you're right. We have to make sure this is sustained. We have to guard against attacks on it. And the last thing we need to do, and this is the unfinished task that Biden has, is that we have to make sure that our trade tools are sharp and that we're willing to use them. Because so far we've basically had the carryover Trump trade policies in place. There's a lot of sniping at those trade policies by some people. But, Biden, will want to do his own version of this, and it needs to be a good one when it hits the ground. And that's what we're really pressing them on with.
No, I mean, last bit, I'm excited about where we can go from here. The idea that you're bringing manufacturing back, and with that, the entrepreneurial mind, the tinkering, the idea of what could come next. Because when you have manufacturing, you have people who are going to go in their garage and trying to figure out how to make things better. And that our history has been that of tinkerers and inventors and people that that think the next down the road of what could possibly be. I'm excited about the future.
Yeah. You've we could talk for an hour about this, but I'll wrap it up in 30 seconds. Is that our kids today, it was like, let's learn how to code, develop an app. Our kids tomorrow, I hope it's get back to that tinkering to see how you can become more self-sufficient from a green energy perspective, or make that next big thing here in the United States, because there will be far more opportunities to do that today than there were 5 or 10 years ago with these policies in place.
Absolutely. Scott, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. Good news. Always great when we have both of those things. Thanks so much.
Totally agree. Rick, thanks so much for having me on.
Anytime. Our good friend Scott Paul, the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, their website. Check it out. We'll get links out on social media. Quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1935. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the Revenue Tax Act, more popularly known as the Wealth Tax. The act reformed the federal income tax to raise rates on the wealthiest in the nation. Those making over $5 million a year could pay taxes up to 75%. In a speech to Congress that summer, Roosevelt had explained his thoughts on wealth and taxes. The president said, quote, "Wealth in the modern world does not come merely from individual effort. It results from a combination of individual effort and of the manifold uses to which the community puts that effort. The individual does not create the product of his industry with his own hands. He utilizes the many processes and forces of mass production to meet the demands of a national and international market. Therefore, in spite of the great importance in our national life of the efforts and ingenuity of unusual individuals, the people in the mass have inevitably helped to make large fortunes possible. Without mass cooperation," FDR said, "great accumulation of wealth would be impossible save by unhealthy speculation." The president went on, "As Andrew Carnegie put it, where wealth accumulates honorably, the people are always silent partners. Whether it be wealth achieved through the cooperation of the entire community or riches gained by speculation, in either case, the ownership of such wealth or riches represents a great public interest and a great ability to pay." Although FDR tried to win over the nation's wealthy by quoting industrialist Andrew Carnegie, he did not gain their support. Not surprisingly, many of the nation's wealthy lobbied for and used tax loopholes to evade paying the new tax rates. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line one. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing. How about yourself?
I'm living the dream. What's on your mind?
Well, what I wanted to say was, hopefully, that more people, once everything starts to go into effect with the, the new jobs and whatnot, that people will decide that, we could tinker with that and improve that. And the thing is, you need people, really, everything goes hand in hand. I know I'm sounding very disjointed, but things go hand in hand when you have to have money and you have to have an education. And those two things go hand in hand, because if you think something scientifically that's wrong, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think the big thing is, once, hopefully, things start to go back to a little bit more towards the sane side, that we'll start to see people, tinkering more, wanting to expand the horizons, educate themselves so they have a chance to go out there and improve things.
That's the hope. When the economy gets better, people's lives get better, maybe they're not as angry anymore. And maybe we move in a better direction. That's kind of the hope where my mind goes. Appreciate the thoughts.
Bye.
Good stuff. But this is the thing, and this is why it's amazing to me that Biden's approval ratings aren't higher, because lots of stuff that any administration, especially the last one, would have been thrilled to get done. And, for me, it comes back to something, that my high school government teacher said. We're going back a lot of years. It was, government decides who gets what. Our government decides who gets what. And for too long, our government's been deciding that the well-connected and the wealthy get whatever they want, because they're paying for They're paying for the campaigns. They're where the campaign cash comes from, thanks to our Supreme Court and the shenanigans there. We're in a moment now where I'm hoping that working people are paying attention, especially as November comes. This is a moment. This administration has doubled down on trying to help working families, has doubled down on trying to invest in a different kind of economy, making sure that there are jobs here, making sure that those jobs are decent jobs, making sure that people have health care, making sure that there are opportunities. And we can argue whether you think it's good enough. They're trying. Unlike the previous administration that got nothing done. Lots of blather, lots of pumping up the chest and chest thumping, but no real action. Oh, they did have one action. They made rich people richer. That's their legacy. They own that. This administration is trying to make working people's lives better by creating jobs, by reshoring manufacturing, by investing in this country to leave something better for the next generation, and oh, by the way, creating jobs. And oh, by the way, maybe dealing with the climate problems. So much here, so much being done. And I think we've been trained to not think of our government helping working people. I think we've been trained for far too long to think, well, what? What's wrong? Why would government help us? Why would our government help us? It's for the poor and for the wealthy. Because this is what my high school government teacher said back in the 80s. You know, when asked, which side do you go on? Because a lot of us were trying to decide, well, which political party should we be part of? And he was clear. He said, look, the Democrats are for the very poor and big social programs, and the Republicans are for lesser government and for the very wealthy. It's that simple. The people in the middle, they end up paying for both of them. You have to decide which end you're going to be at, because you're going to pay for both. And it was the more I think back to that, it was kind of a flippant comment. He was kind of just being sarcastic, but it makes worlds of sense. And we now have a bunch of embarrassed millionaires of people who think that they're going to all be Jeff Bezos. And looking behind them at the people who are struggling and with a jaundiced eye. Only now to realize that, life didn't turn out the way that they had planned. And now they're angry because the jobs are gone, the opportunities are fewer for them, and they're ticked. And the wealth class is very happy to use that anger to pit them against everybody else. And this is one of those moments where, by bringing those jobs back, and as Scott Paul said, especially into red states, creating living wage jobs for people, better opportunities for the future, and oh, by the way, dealing with our climate issues. Oh, by the way, moving us in a cleaner, greener direction. Changing this country, and for the better. Getting us off the dirty stuff, and oh, by the way, kind of changing the economy. Because, and I've talked about this before, what good is an economy if so many people are struggling to make ends meet? What good is an economy if working people can't participate? What good is an economy when you're fearful every day of, if you get sick, that you're gonna die poor? What good is an economy if it doesn't take care of people? Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any program, podcast.
Small green plants lined the bed of what used to be a frontier lake between Switzerland and France. It's existed for 12,000 years, but now it's relegated to just a small stream.
More than half of Europe mired in worst drought in